Howdy, heretics. And sorry, I was on vacation last week, but I got you a Mormon. He's going to tell us all the dirty secret from the Lamanites and the Nephites and the Mormons. And he didn't watch my video about the Mormons. Maybe you did, because I was in Rörus and they have a huge mine. So I got this. It's a swag. My video about the Mormons. Maybe you did, because I was in Rörus and they have a huge mine. That was my YouTube there, son. So you get the echo.
Okay.
So this is Jared. Tell us who you are. He's been on before.
Jared. My wife runs the My Spiritual Life channel, and we used to be Mormons. She talks a lot about that, and I'm on the channel sometimes.
Yeah. And I asked her if she could tell us all the secrets about the Mormon temple. And she said, Jared can do that.
Yeah, she gets... she doesn't want to be mean or disrespectful, but I'm kind of a jerk, so I don't really care about being mean or disrespectful.
Yeah. You know, I hated when I was a witness, not believing anymore. And as soon as you said you were a witness, everyone said, oh, we respect everything. Why should you respect everything?
Yeah.
You know, if you say that you respect everything, well, then you're in this place where if someone says, I'm a Nazi, you have to say, well, I'm tolerant of that. They are intolerant. You have to be intolerant of intolerance.
That's a great Patton Oswalt bit, one of my favorite comedians. He talks about how you have to respect everybody's beliefs. Like, no. Some people believe in like child brides and crap like that, so I don't think I have to respect that.
Now you respect people's action, not what they believe, you know?
Yeah.
Some people believe that being gay is wrong, but they treat them good, and I have no problem with that. Some people believe that there's nothing wrong with being gay, and they treat them like crap. I have a problem with that. You know, it's the actions that makes a man, not the beliefs.
That's a good point. I'm going to move this real quick. This lamp is right in the way.
Yeah. So last week I was in Rörus. It's a beautiful city, so that's why I couldn't make many videos. I was there, and a short vacation. If you're ever in Norway, you should go to Rörus. It's a beautiful wooden city. You know, old houses, many of them from the 1600s.
Wow.
So I guess that's older than the United States of America. When were you founded? Like the Constitution?
I mean, the Declaration of Independence was in 1776, but there have been people here.
So the hotel I stayed in, it was called Freya's Hotel. I'm making a video about that now on my second channel. That was from 1742, so it's older than your country.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, but if you haven't seen my video, I'm a son of a blacksmith, so I every time I hear about the Mormons, they believe that they were metal. The Native Americans have metal, and they have all these stories about was a million people in the war with, you know, the Lamanites and Nephites.
There was one. It was the Jaredites and the Jaredites fighting amongst themselves. That one was way before the Nephites, and there was one battle where they said over 1 million people died. Like, it is massive battle.
And that was like Hill Cumorah, according to
it was on Hill Cumorah, which is like in upstate New York.
And we know where the detectors, they haven't found one sword.
No, they haven't.
Yeah. And I've spoken with Mormons about that, and they say, we don't need evidence to believe. And my point with my video makes, if you don't need evidence, okay, this is evidence, I don't need it, but it's still there.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I need it or not. It will not disappear because I doesn't need it. Mm-hmm. So if a bad person, insincere or selfish or proud or anything, wants to look at it, it will be there.
Yeah, there's a lot of things like that from the Book of Mormon. They mention elephants and horses and
goats. Goats.
Yeah, goats. They
had goats.
A lot of things
in America before Columbus.
Yeah. And a lot of apologists will try to explain it away. One of the ExMorgans' favorite example of that is Dan Peterson. He's a Mormon apologist, and he tried to explain that, well, maybe they weren't talking about horses. Maybe Joseph Smith maybe they were talking about tapirs.
Yeah.
And so that's the ex-Mormons' favorite, because tapirs are like they're like the size of a pony, and it's like riding a pony into battle.
Yeah, and they're really slow also.
Yeah. Not an effective battle animal.
Yeah, no, it's weird. But no, if you're having a mining operation, even a small operation like the Vikings could have, like 10 guys working for 10 years, the slag heap build up. So even if the Native Americans would misplace all of their tools at the same day and forget about the technology, which is highly unlikely, the slag heap should still be there. What would a true believing Mormons say if I showed them the slag heap? Would they believe the slag heap were, the immediate family of Joseph Smith? Or
it probably, I mean, there's a couple different ways they'd take it. I've seen people say things like some Mormons that don't believe, some of them believe in like a young earth, like the earth is only 6,000 years old. That's not something you have to believe as a Mormon, but I had somebody who believed that ask me when I was on my mission, he's like, what do you guys think about dinosaurs? And I was like, well, I mean, they're pretty cool. Like, what's my favorite one? I don't know what you mean. He's like, no, do you think they existed? And I was like, what? Of course I do. And he said, but like, the Bible says the earth's only 6,000 years old. And I was like, oh, that's wrong. And he believed.
The Bible also talk about dragons.
I know. He believes, and a lot of people that are Mormons try to explain this way by saying that Satan put the bones of the dinosaurs there to deceive us, or God let the bones of the dinosaurs stay there to test our faith or whatever. And there's even some more outlandish ones that, like, because Mormons believe in, infinite number of worlds. Each person becomes a god, and each person creates their own world. Sometimes some people try to explain it away like God was pulling things from different worlds, and those dinosaurs were just creatures from another world, and that's what the fossil is, or something like that. There's a lot of ways they try to kind of go about it, but the slag heaps, they would I don't know, they probably just, you're taught to just bear your testimony, right? So whenever you're confronted with evidence, you just say, well, you know what, I prayed about it, and God confirmed to me that this is his true gospel. And then you just kind of ignore it. That's sort of what you're taught to do.
Yeah, I've spoken with the missionaries. I find it, well, the missionaries were very nice to me when I was a Jehovah Witness pioneer. That's what we call missionaries. Yeah. And I was hitchhiking, because we're poor. But the Mormons used to pick me up. So they spend the Lord's money, petrol on helping Watchtower. It's nice of them. So now I used to buy them pizza every now and then, but they have this sales pitch when they say that we cannot prove this is true with evidence. And it sounds like something they've been practicing in front of a mirror, and it sounds good to them. But
it is.
Well, the thing is, one thing you cannot prove it, but can you disprove it? It's easy to disprove it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's necessarily...
Like we cannot prove side of evidence, but the other side of evidence, can you disprove it? They don't think about that.
Yeah, generally you can't really prove a negative, and they'll try to grasp on it. But there's, like, you can have facts that conflict with their version of reality, like the slag heaps. That's a good example. Like, we find these everywhere else, but we don't find them in this area where you claim millions of people operated at least like enough of a civilization to where millions of people had to die in a battle with, metal weapons and stuff like that. So yeah, there's definitely conflicting evidence that would portray a different version of reality than what the Book of Mormon says. And it's exactly what you said. It is sort of like something you memorize. It's when you're in the missionary training center, you're basically taught high pressure sales techniques, and that's one of them. You just say, I know it's true because God told me. And it's almost like it's a badge of honor that you believe despite evidence to the contrary. because that means that you have more faith. It takes more faith to believe against rationality than it would to believe if, all of the Nephite civilizations were discovered.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. Now there's nice people everywhere. I used to be Jehovah Witness. You really thought the worst thing that could happen to anyone was to not be a Jehovah Witness. So obviously we wanted to save them from that terrible faith. And it kind of the same with the Mormons. I remember they asked the Mormon, missionary, what happened to those that don't become Mormons? And she basically started crying.
That's an instruction in the MTC. I remember being taught specifically by Jeffrey R. Holland. He's one of the 12 apostles, very high-ranking guy. He has a talk entitled "Be Devastated," and it's two missionaries, and it's telling them when somebody that you're teaching tells you we no longer want to be taught or whatever, they drop you for whatever reason, you are supposed to be devastated. And so I remember,
that's very manipulative.
It is. It's completely manipulative. And I remember not being able to do that very well because I would go somewhere and I'd say, you want to learn about our version of Jesus? And they'd say, nah, I've had fun with you guys, but nah, I'm good. And my companions would just be, how do we deal with this pain? It hurts so much that he's rejecting Jesus. I'm like, it's not a big deal. It's not his thing. And so I was a terrible missionary.
Yeah, me too. I would always tell people the truth because I thought the truth, can stand up to scrutiny.
Oh yeah.
So they say, you beat your children. Yes, they do. Why should you shouldn't lie to them? I thought, the religion is real, so why should you lie?
Yeah.
I never recruited anyone.
I got a couple.
People actually love talking to me because they can sense when you're telling them the truth and not the bullshit.
Yeah, I think I don't think people who are missionaries are generally very good at lying because they don't outright lie. They'll just kind of pivot away. Because you say, like, I heard Joseph Smith married like a 14-year-old girl. And instead of saying, no, he didn't, they'll say, you know what? I don't know everything, but I do know the church is true. And
yeah.
So that kind of, they won't outright lie, but you can tell that they're squirming away from an uncomfortable question. And that feels deceitful. And it's kind of a turnoff to a lot of people.
Yeah. So let's compare Jehovah's Witnesses. We have, you have wards, buildings, and we have Kingdom Hall. You have one bishop. We have a group of elders, and you have a steakhouse that sounds so lovely. We have assembly hall.
Well, it's so there's ward buildings, right? A ward is just an individual congregation, and then like several wards will make up one stake, is what they call it.
But it sounds better than.
It sounds better than it is. It's not really a steakhouse. A steakhouse is just a ward building. It houses a congregation just like the other ward buildings do, but it's also where when all of the wards meet together at a stake conference, that's where they meet. It's generally a little bit bigger than the rest of the ward buildings around it.
Yeah, we call it an assembly hall. That's why Jehovah's Witnesses don't have birthdays. We're not born. We are assembled in the assembly hall.
Really?
So no, and then you have not the governing body. You have 12 apostles, and then instead of Bethel, you have a temple.
A Bethel.
Yeah, we have Bethel. That's like a very holy printing company where we print literature from God and sell. Well, it's a failing business now because no one's paying for paper anymore. So
yeah,
we should have gone with tithing.
Should have, yeah. The Mormons are really cleaning house with tithing.
Yeah, that's the good thing. Well, good thing with being in a cult that you actually say if you have a hobby, they say, "Oh, explore your hobby. Maybe you can make it a living and make more money and pay more tithing." Well, Jehovah's Witnesses like, well, you shouldn't have a hobby. You shouldn't have money. You shouldn't have anything. Spend all your time selling our product, and now the product is free. So, but still, no. Waste all your time pushing this literature. Well, so stupid. I'd rather pay tithing to be.
I probably would too. That sounds excruciating, running around all those houses.
It's so stupid. It's just a 1800s, early 1900s business model that you're still doing, because it's just about keeping people busy so they don't think for themselves.
Oh, it
But
really
they're
is.
not making money anymore. So it's just about keeping people busy.
Yeah, that's a lot of what I think a mission is. Because, we concentrated in 2 years instead of doing the, forever thing that you guys do.
Yeah.
But it's all you're immersed in it, and you're not allowed to talk to or do anything outside of the mission. It's like you get the tunnel vision, and it does more to convert you as a missionary. I don't know what the statistics are, but I would suspect that return missionaries are much less likely to stray. And now that might be different because everyone's leaving.
It is. A lot
I
of
don't know.
people leaving.
What was that?
There's a lot of people leaving the Mormons.
And a lot of people leaving the Mormon. I mean, the world in general, I guess the Western world in general, is becoming a lot less religious.
Yeah.
And that's true of the United States as well, it's mostly anecdotal that I have I know a lot more people personally that are leaving the church now than I've ever known before in my life. And it's, partially the internet, I would say. They can't just push away, because they used to, anytime somebody would bring up something troubling like polygamy or whatever, they'd be like, those are anti-Mormon lies, push them away. And now they can't do that because there's a lot of verifiable information just ready for anyone on the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the same problem.
Yeah, the internet is the bane of any high demand religion.
Yeah, but also internet starts new cults, like QAnon thing that sounds culty to me.
I've heard that. I haven't really looked into it at all, so I don't know anything about it.
No, yeah, it's weird. Anyway, so you know that Jehovah Witnesses have Latter-day Saints?
They have Latter-day Saints?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
because every month, Jehovah Witnesses have to report to the Watchtower every month how much literature we sell, would be the normal word, but there's no money involved anywhere. How many hours you spend, how many literature you deliver, how many people you talk to. Every month have to send a report. So some people are lazy and don't do anything during the month. So the last weekend they had to go out and get their hours in. They're called Latter-day Saints.
Yeah, you told me that last time. You think the Jehovah's Witnesses think the Mormons are lazy.
Yeah.
Which, I guess comparatively, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. So you could tell us about the temple, because it's a big secret, and I heard you will go to Mormon hell if you do that. So it's very nice of you to do that.
It's not a secret. It's sacred. Okay?
Yeah, it's not a secret, it's sacred, but you cannot talk about the sacred.
Yeah.
So just come to think about something. When you go to Mormon hell, you will be kind of like a spirit being with no physical body.
Yeah.
So that basically, Watchtower Jehovah, I wonder if he knows that he's in Mormon hell.
Mormonism places a huge emphasis on physical bodies. Like, they think that God has a physical body, and they think that's basically what hell is a state of being without your physical body, because everybody, before they go to heaven, they get resurrected into a perfect version of their body. And so it's supposed to be a big deal to not have your body.
Yeah. So, but I also heard when you talk to an angel, according to Joseph Smith, you should always shake his hand to make sure he has a physical body, so it's not Satan.
There's a few different. It instructs you that you offer the angel a handshake, and if it declines, that means that it's an angel of God that hasn't gotten a body yet, so it's somebody who hasn't come to earth yet. If it accepts and shakes your hand, that means it's a resurrected being. And if it accepts and tries to shake your hand but passes through, that means that it's a servant of the devil.
Okay. So when an angel wielding a sword tell Joseph Smith to have sex with young girls, how did he shake her hands?
You know, I guess he didn't. So maybe it was Satan.
Okay. Anyway, so I just wonder, because there's a celestial room,
Yeah.
and that's where they can talk with dead people, I heard.
I mean, it's supposed to be like, they're very vague about everything they say, which is pretty intelligent, because if you tell everyone they're going to see Jesus when they go to the temple, you're going to have a lot of people that don't see Jesus and they become disillusioned. So they say that so the veil is what they call it when before you're born.
Could you start with the first room? Like,
yeah.
Place where you're changed into those white clothing?
Yeah, you go in.
It's like a gym. You start with putting on white clothing.
Yeah, you walk in and you have your temple recommend in hand, and they scan it. And the temple recommend is like, you have to answer a certain amount of questions to your bishop. You have to renew it every so often, and you definitely have to pay tithing. And they scan it, and then you go into another room where you get it's just a locker room, and you get dressed in all white, like white pants, white slippers, white tie, and those clothes are just kind of like your Sunday best, but entirely white. And then you go into the first room, and they play a video for you, which old temples used to do. They have like these old people that act it out, and there's some, like the Salt Lake Temple, they still have, they call them live sessions rather than the video. They'll have actual temple work.
You watch a video in the temple.
Yeah, you watch a video. That's most of what you do. It's all about Adam and Eve.
Welcome to our temple.
Yeah, kind of. Well, the first thing they let you know,
the parking and handicapped. What kind of video is it?
Well, the first thing it tells you is anybody who's here and not worthy to be here, get up and leave now, because God will not be mocked, is what they say. And so that's very intimidating. And at that point, even if you're, not worthy, you're going to be like, oh, I'm not moving. I'm not getting up in front of everyone here. Be like, never mind, guys. I'm garbage, so I need to get out. But then it starts, and it
Does anyone do that they leave?
What was that?
That they get up and leave?
I've never seen somebody actually get up and leave.
It would be fun. I have to get one of those. You can get them online and get in. Would be fun. Okay, continue. Sorry.
No, you're good. The video starts, and it's just it's about the creation of the earth. And there's Elohim, who is God the Father. There's Jehovah, who for us is Jesus Christ before he came to earth. Mm-hmm. And then there's Michael, the archangel, who we believe, not we, who Mormons believe, is Adam before he came to earth. And Elohim.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So Elohim instructs Jehovah and Michael on how to create the earth. And it takes forever. And it's always like Elohim says, go separate the light from the darkness. And then we will go down and do that. And it's kind of like a game of telephone.
I think I've seen that video on YouTube.
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube.
Okay.
That was
a cartoon thing.
Oh, the cartoon thing. No, that's like that's like an anti-Mormon cartoon.
Okay.
But it explains a lot about the temple. You can find videos like hidden camera inside the temple. This guy is Mike Norton.
New name Noah.
Yeah, new name Noah. I'm sure you've heard of him.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of videos of in there, and that's exactly what it is. But it's all about the creation, God, Jesus, and Adam creating the world, and then eventually they put Michael into Adam's body, and he forgets. He doesn't know that he's Michael. And then it's for the most part, it's like the traditional Adam and Eve story. Satan comes in and tempts them, tries to get them to partake of the fruit. Adam refuses. Eve partakes of the fruit, and causes the downfall of humanity. But Mormons do have a much more like a kind view of Eve than most of Christianity. They view the fall of Adam and Eve as absolutely necessary. It was something that had to happen. So yeah, Eve disobeyed God, but she's supposed to do that. Basically, it's kind of weird.
Okay.
And then as Adam and Eve progress, like as they find out they've got to, after they take the fruit, you know, they're like, oh, I'm naked. Don't come in. And then they stop and they have you as the audience stand up and put on the apron, which is just this.
Yeah, the green apron.
Yeah, the green apron. It's got like embroidered on it. And that's to represent them hiding themselves, you know, from God behind a bush. And so then God kicks them out and they have to, he makes them robes out of animals. And then you take off your green apron and you put on your robes. There's like a robe that goes down like a sash.
Like this.
Yeah. And you put on your left shoulder first, and you have the men have this hat. It looks kind of like a baker's hat, and it has a little tassel that comes down and ties to a thing on your shoulder. And then you put the apron back on over all of this. And the women have a veil rather than a hat. And then
I've seen pictures. It looks really weird.
It is really weird. And you're not told about it at all before. Like, I didn't know anything. My mom just took me. She's like, where do you go get your temple clothes? And I thought she just meant like the white slacks and white tie. And we get there and the lady goes, what size apron? And I was like, apron? And my mom's like, you'll see. And then I see her open the drawer and I was like, what the hell is this green thing? You'll find out tomorrow when you go through the temple. I was like, I'm not going to have to like cut my wrist and bleed into a bowl or anything, am I? You start to get a little bit nervous because you're like, okay, this is odd. And because they don't tell you anything about it. You're not supposed to talk about the temple pretty much at all outside of the temple.
No. That's where you're going to hell.
Yeah.
No. But also, I guess it's like they talk it up like this is something wonderful. It's something wonderful. It's something wonderful. It's so exciting. It's wonderful. Like you believe that this is like the best thing that ever could happen.
Mm-hmm. No,
and then you think, well, something's wrong with me.
Yeah, that's exactly
it looks like everyone else can see the emperor's clothes. I cannot. There's something wrong with me.
That's a perfect analogy, because I was sitting in there, I was like looking around, and I'm trying. I got this beaming smile on my face because I don't want people to know that I'm like, what the hell is going on? And my mom, because the men and the women sit on opposite sides. It's like an auditorium looking thing, and one side is for the men, the other side is for the women. And my mom told me later the woman sitting next to her looked over at me, because they know when it's your first time going through. Because every time you go through after that, you're going through on behalf of a dead person. But you have like this little pink badge on, so everyone knows this is just this guy's first time he's going through for his own endowment session. The lady looked over and she's like, he's beautiful. Like I can tell he's really feeling the spirit. And I'm like sweating bullets thinking God's going to strike me down, because I had just watched porn earlier that week. So I wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. So when do they do this? Oh Lord, hear the word of my mouth. Oh Lord. When's that?
So after a little while, there's 2 degrees of priesthood in Mormonism. There's the Aaronic priesthood, which is the lower, and the Melchizedek priesthood, which is the higher. And once Adam gets the Melchizedek priesthood, you take your robes off again and then put it over the right shoulder.
Yeah. You turn it to the opposite side.
Yeah.
Do you turn your slippers too?
What was that?
Your shoes, don't you turn the shoes also?
No.
It's just, okay.
That would be pretty funny. I mean, it's all pretty funny. I get that. That's not any weirder than anything I've told you. So,
yeah.
But then you
said it earlier, you know, that's anti-Mormon. It's really difficult for us to know what's pro-Mormon and anti-Mormon. Like,
anti-Mormon is anything I'm uncomfortable with.
this is crazy. For us, it's like, this is crazy.
Yeah. Well, I had people ask me. I remember my friends in school were like, I hear when you go to the temple, they anoint your balls. And I was like, no. And they're like, but have you ever been? I was like, well, no, but there's no way they do that. They don't brace you for all the weird rumors you're going to hear, because you can't say definitively that's not what we do, because I've never been there. But eventually, throughout the video, they're giving you what's called your signs and your tokens, and that's the stuff that you're really not supposed to talk about. Yeah, stuff like that. And I
don't tend to, but you have the double nail or something.
Yeah. The sure sign of the nail. That's like the last handshake. And you got to know all these to get in. I could
probably trick myself into the celestial.
You know? I know if you watch enough video, and it's actually, they're all exactly the same as the Masonic sign, because Masons have different handshakes that they use, and the Mormons use the exact same ones.
Yeah, because the new names you get, you get a new name.
Yeah,
you're not allowed to tell anyone, because then you go to hell. What was your name?
Josiah.
Okay. So if I just go to the celestial and say I'm Josiah, and I'll do all the shaking things, you know, and I get in, you know.
Yeah, you just kind of flew under God's radar.
Yeah. You know, the security system for the celestial, it's basically made in the 1800s. Yep. It wasn't prepared for YouTube. Everyone can learn the handshakes and come up with a name.
Oh yeah, and all the names on the same day are the same. So like if you
but do you know that? All the apostates know that, but do you know it when you're Mormon, that you have the same name as everyone else?
You don't, but you kind of suspect it. And the reason, I remember wondering, because at the beginning of the session, you get the new name before the session starts, and then at the beginning of the session they ask, you're going to need this new name. Is there anyone in the room who's forgotten the new name? And I always wondered, I was like, how do they, like, there's one guy that gives me the new name, and do they have to go track that guy down if I forget it? He doesn't write it down anywhere. And then I was like, I wonder how they remind me what the new name is. And then finally I saw somebody stand up and say they had forgotten. And then just a random temple attendant walks up and whispers into there. I was like, oh, it's just the same name. There's not like a secret to it. Everyone today is Josiah. I'm not special.
Yeah, but that's why it's so easy to trick, you know, the celestial. You just go up and do the handshake and say Josiah, and they look at the long map and see which one, and I say the one that never masturbated and paid all the money, and then I go in.
Yep. That is a very important distinction to make.
Yeah. No, okay, so but that's the first room. You watch a cartoon and do a funny handshake.
It's actually not a cartoon. It's a live acted video.
Oh,
they got real actors. And there's several different versions of the video, but the first room you start out in is called the telestial room.
Yeah,
which is the lowest kingdom, like the lowest heaven for Mormons. And then you move on to the next one, which is the terrestrial room, which is the second kingdom, and that's where like the altar is, where you do they call it the true order of prayer, and one person kneels at the altar, and they have a bag full of names that people have submitted to be prayed for in the temple, because it's supposed to be like a super prayer, I guess. And then you all circle around that person, male, female, and you do for a male, you do that patriarchal grip to the person to your left, and rest your arm on their shoulder like that, and so it makes a circle. And then the women have to veil their faces, and that might have been changed. I know they've made some changes since I've been, but then the guy in the middle says a prayer, and it's not like a scripted prayer or anything. It's just he says a prayer for these names, but he does it in small phrases, and everyone in the circle repeats the prayer. And it's either right before that or right after that you do that 3 times, the "Oh God, hear the words of my mouth" thing. And that's when you start to, because once the kind of chanting part of it started, I remember like looking around like, oh, this is a cult.
Yeah.
I actually told myself that, and I didn't think it was fake. I was like,
It's a good cult.
It's
God's one true cult.
But yeah, it's kind of a cult. And so that was the moment, you know. But then you have to they have all of these veils, and this is supposed to be like symbolism of what's going to happen, how you enter heaven. And the same symbols that are on your garments are in all of the veils. You reach through with one, on the bottom one, you reach through with your right hand, and you show the temple attendant there all the different handshakes, and you put your left hand through there and put it on his shoulder, and you have to give him the passcodes with the hand, because each handshake has a passcode, and you got to give it to him, and then if you get them all right, you go to heaven, which in this case symbolically is called the celestial room. And that's the
so everyone has to do this to go from one room to another. You have to stand in line while everyone do the handshake with the guy behind the veil.
Yeah, but there's several different veils. So they'll
like it takes a lot of time just to move from one room to another.
Oh, it does. And that's only the last room that you do that.
Okay.
But the whole session itself, they shortened it up a little bit since I've been, but when I went, it was about 3 hours long to do this whole thing. It was excruciating. And you're supposed to do it as many times as you can. Like when we first got married, Morgan and I were doing it every Friday night, and I absolutely hated it. I slept through it usually. Many times somebody had to nudge me.
What do Heavenly Father say when you sleep during temple?
I don't know. I already knew I was going to Mormon hell anyway, because I never confessed anything to my bishop that I was supposed to, so I knew that I was already just unworthy.
Yeah. Okay, so you do the veil, and then just one question. So the veil workers, the temple hobbits, can they be women?
Yeah, there's half of them have to be women, because the women do everything for the women, and the men do everything for the men. Everything's divided into half. So there's like 6 or 7 different veils you can go through, but half of them will be on the left side of the room, which is where the women sit. The other half will be on the right side, which is where the men sit. And when I go through, I always, go to the men's side and have a man temple attendant pull me through. But then Morgan would go to the women's side, and a female temple attendant would pull her through. And there's other things that happen in the temple, not just the endowment. And so there's they call them initiatories. That's where they do the washing and anointing. They put a little drop of water on your head and give you a blessing. If you're
where's that, the oil thing?
Yeah, the oil thing.
Between what rooms?
So that's actually something separate from the endowment session.
Because I heard that they used to be like they would go, and some perps would take advantage of people, So they changed it. I heard, for liability reason. That's what I heard.
They changed a lot in 1990, I think, is the year that a lot of things, because they used to have it used to be really ominous. Like one of the promises you would do, you would pantomime your own death, right? They were called the penalties. So you do the slitting the throat and slitting the bowels. If I divulge these secrets, this is how I should die, or whatever. And
maybe
I think they changed the anointing, and they changed that at the same time. It was never like that when I went through.
Because when they did put up this, magic underwear, I heard, there was some people working there, that took advantage of the situation, and they changed it now. So you have to, and
Yeah.
also oil were like, now it's like just a little boop, 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 but it used to be.
I have heard that. I don't really, I haven't looked into what the temple used to be like too much. But it definitely was weird. And now they have women do the washing and anointing for other women, and men do it for men. I don't know if it's as a result of that or what.
From a liability perspective, it's obvious, you cannot lose all the nice money. But so Jehovah Witnesses, they have this idea of new light. They get new light, so they change the teaching. But it would be, how do they sell it when they change the temple ceremony? Because that should be eternal. They can't just say new light. And how do they sell it?
Yeah, they kind of do. They kind of just their best sell is that Mormons put a really strong emphasis on continuing revelation. Like the Book of Mormon is evidence of that. They say, we believe, that new scripture can be released anytime. And you have a prophet who's hearing things directly from God. The problem is that they also believe that God is the same today, yesterday, and always. So it's really odd when things happen like when in 1979, when they finally decided to give Black people the priesthood and let them go to the temple. That seems like a big deal. That seems like
I was going to ask that because I knew Black people couldn't have the priesthood, but women can also not have the priesthood. But women can go to temple. But was it like Black people could not go to the temple also?
Yeah, you as a man, you have to have the priesthood to go to the temple.
Okay, so Black women could go to the temple.
I don't think so. And I might be wrong about that, but I'm pretty sure, because they still had doctrine up to that point stating that interracial marriage was a no-no.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it was, and that part of the big reason that changed was, I served my mission in Brazil, and I remember hearing stories about this. Sao Paulo was the first temple in Brazil, and it might have been the first temple in South America at all. And it was like a big deal that it got built because the church didn't have the money then that it does now. And the people that live there, the members, really wanted a temple because they tell you how important the temple is. And they were like selling the gold from their teeth to get money to make this temple. They were really wanting it. And there's a lot of Black people in Brazil, and it's, a lot of people were sad because they're like, well, all these very faithful Black members of the church are sacrificing so much to build a temple that they're not even going to get a go in. And I'm pretty sure that one was built in 78 or 79, right around the time they decided that Black people could have the priesthood.
Okay. Well, if they had gold. That's interesting. No, well, let's give them credit for being less racist now than they used to be. That's fair. But it's kind of weird, the kind of racism. I know Self on the Shelf, they said they get comment from people that say, but you're so white. Like that would be an argument for something.
Oh, like when...
Yeah, why did you leave the church? You're so white.
Oh, yeah.
Like it's a virtue by itself. Or
why are you complaining about things that are happening to other people? Well...
But so then you do, okay, so the reason why I asked about women veil workers, because I met once when I was going back from Russia. I was working for the Witnesses in Russia, and I was taking the boat from Sweden to Finland, and some Mormon sisters came and talked to me and tried to convert me. And I tried to convert them. None of us succeeded, but one of them said she was a veil worker in Finland. She was a native Finn. The other one were Americans. Mm-hmm. So if she's watching this, thank you. It's easy to remember her because she was a small person, so can't be too many Finnish natives female veil workers. They have a temple in Sweden and in Finland, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Probably had one in Russia, but it should maybe be confiscated by now.
I don't know. The Mormons play by the rules in Russia a lot better than the Jehovah's Witnesses do.
Okay.
Because I'm pretty sure isn't the whole Watchtower organization outlawed there now?
Yeah, and then took our property.
Yeah.
So the stuff I was building is now a hospital or something.
Oh,
thank you very much. I approve that.
the Mormons, I remember they were a lot better at because the Russian government had all these very stringent rules on what you could do to proselytize. And I know that like the Jehovah's Witnesses are very like, nope, we're doing it our way. And, they get dinged for that. And the Mormons, the rules changed a lot there. So missionaries that are there now, they're not even called missionaries, they're called volunteers. And they help people with like manual service and things like that. And there's like some rule that if the person specifically asks them, they can then teach, but they can't initiate or something like that. And I don't know. I think the church is still around in Russia because of that.
Okay. But you do also military service and we don't, so to speak. So obviously any KGB run organization are not happy with an American organization running around, taking notes, sending the notes to America, telling people not to defend their country.
Yeah, that's because I had a Jehovah's Witness friend, kind of almost girlfriend in high school, and we would always try to convert each other. And I do remember they're very like, you guys don't say the pledge, right?
Nope.
I guess that doesn't really apply to you because you're not in America. I don't know if you guys have a version of that, but
no. Well, the pledge. If you ask me my opinion, that seems really culty. Like all the children should do this because this is what the parents believe.
No, I'm with you.
It's really culty and brainwashing to do the pledge.
No, I'm pretty sure it was a direct response to like Hitler Youth when they added one nation under God. I don't remember. It's been a long time since.
Actually, you used to do the pledge like this.
Really?
Yeah, and then when Hitler and Mussolini started running around, they changed it to this.
Oh.
But actually, it was this. It's not like Hitler came up with a special angle of showing your left. That's pretty intuitive. You do stuff like that, and the Romans did it. So actually, America, not many knows it, but you change from this to this when Hitler and the crazy people started doing it.
It kind of dirtied the water a little bit.
Yeah, and then I think the under God came with communism. It's opposition to, the godless communism.
Right. It's been a long time since I've researched that, but she was actually the person that got me to research that because I was like, how come? Because we would stand, every morning at school and say the pledge, and she wouldn't. And I asked her, I was like, why do you guys not say the pledge? And they're like, well, we think God is the higher, Jehovah is, the only person we can pledge allegiance to. And I thought about it a little bit, and I was like, that kind of makes sense. We're sort of making an idol out of the flag, and it was almost cool.
Yeah, but anyway, so from a Russian perspective, you are less of it because, remember that Russia was invaded and 27 million people died.
Mm-hmm.
That's, I think Americans would call it more than the flu. That's a lot of people, How many died September 11 was?
It's like 3,000 to 5,000. I can't remember.
Yeah, and that's terrible. But imagine what it makes to a nation to lose 27 million people.
Oh, yeah.
And what Hitler did, Hitler hated Jehovah's Witnesses and put them in concentration camps like this, except in Russia. Then he supported them. Because he knew that they are pacifists and they're spreading the pacifist propaganda. So having Russian pacifists, he was okay with that. He was not okay with having German pacifists. And obviously this is something KGB know and will never forget.
Yeah, the Mormons, Hitler was fine with the Mormons for the most part, I think. There was the youngest person, I can't remember his name, Hans Helmut, I think is his name, but he's like the youngest person ever German citizen to be killed by Hitler, or by the regime. And he was a Mormon, and he opposed the Nazi teachings, and then he was actually excommunicated by his bishop.
Yeah,
because Mormons are very patriotic, which was always confusing to me, because I remember that's one of the articles of faith is what they call them. It says, we believe in being subject to kings, magistrates, blah, 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 and obeying the law of the land. And that was one of the first things that made me kind of question, because I heard that and I was like, well, yeah, but what about, like, I don't know, any story from the Bible, like Daniel, right? It was illegal. It was against the law of the land for Daniel to pray, but he did it anyway. And I feel like at the time I was like, he was right for doing that. It was right for him to disobey the law of the land. Why do we think that you just have to, zealously obey the law of the land? And nobody really ever gave me a satisfactory answer for that.
Yeah, well, witnesses would give a good answer for that. It's like the law of God is above the law of the land. So if there's a contradiction, you always go, like God's law is watchtower law in real life. It's like if there's a local law you live in Idaho, yeah? Mm-hmm. And if there's a state legislation in Idaho that contradicts the Constitution will always outrule any other legislation,
Yeah.
And also if there's a specific law, like lex specialis, that is specific to this case, that contradicts a law that it's broadly applicable. So you have two pieces of legislation in Idaho. One of them is like, in general, this is the law. And then one very specific in these cases. Well, you should always go with the specific trumped the broadly. So that's kind of normal in any legal system, that sometimes the law disagree with each other. And then you have lex superior, lex specialis, lex anterior, lex posterior, and so on. And they go.
Yeah. No, I get that, but I always, that the Mormon, the Mormon mantra is obey the law of the land, and that always confused me. If you were to ask Mormons, if God tells you to do something that contradicts the law, what do you do? They would tell you, do what God tells you to do, even if it's against the law. And so then I mean, well, then why have that rule that says to obey the law of the land then? Because you obey God's law. It's better. It's bigger than the law of the land. So I don't know. It was always kind of a sticking point for me, because I was like, the government can, there's a lot of instances of tyranny where, Oscar Schindler disobeyed the law. All these people that we call heroes didn't obey the law of the land specifically, and were right for doing so.
Yeah. No, it's it's a big discussion. But anyway, so in the celestial, what do you do in the celestial?
Nothing really.
You get married in the celestial?
No, you don't.
No? That's the altar room terrestrial.
Yeah, there's a different altar room for you to get married in, and that's
what's that called?
What was that?
What's the name of that room? I'm trying to make a mental map of all the rooms.
No, I gotcha. They just call that like the sealing room, right? Oh. Because being married for eternity is called being sealed together. And there's just an altar that you kneel on either side, do your handshake, and then the temple worker says some things. And
do you do a handshake with your wife when you're?
Yeah, you do. That's the appropriate response.
And in those, and so you get married, and you and your wife to be are dressed in this weird stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of people are dressed like normal people.
Yeah, they're dressed just like they're going to church on Sunday.
Why everyone dressed like weirdos or Latter-day Saints?
No, I know it's like the opposite of a normal wedding, because in a normal wedding you're the fanciest looking person, and this it looks like you're wearing crappy cosplay and everybody else is just dressed for church or something. You look goofy as all hell. It was always embarrassing. We would always run into people we knew at the temple, And I never wanted to talk to him because he'd stop and talk, like, "Oh, how you doing?" We're all dressed up in this weird shit. And I don't want to talk to you, man. I cannot take you seriously in that hat and that green apron thing.
Don't anyone in Utah make like a theme restaurant or something, like a Mormon theme restaurant for all the non-Mormons? Like imagine all the waiters dressed around in temple clothing. It may be difficult if you sold something, but that would be like a fun restaurant in Utah for all the tourists to go to. Have a restaurant called the Mormon Temple.
My friend and I were just talking about it. He wanted to make one called, he wanted to make a bar in Utah called Nephis Boat. And it's, because there's a part in the Book of Mormon where Nephi builds like a transatlantic vessel that he uses to go from Jerusalem all the way to the Americas somewhere. And his brothers get mad at him and tie him to the mast, and they're all dancing and drinking and having a good time. And he said it'd be like, you got your mast in the middle, and Nephi's that you got like an animatronic Nephi tied to it, shouting at you for, being worldly or whatever.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, it only worked in Utah though.
Some kind of theme. There must be a lot. Well, I think there's the majority of the people in Utah are not Mormons now.
Yeah, in Utah as a whole, I'm pretty sure it's a majority. I don't know what the exact.
I heard it changed recently.
Did it?
Yeah, but still, even if it's just 20% that are not Mormons, it should probably be kind of a great tourist trap to have a Mormon themed restaurant with the fake celestial and.
Yeah, it would piss off a lot of people, but you could probably get it done in Salt Lake.
Would be fun.
I know. There are a couple people that are pretty ballsy and have like walked around the Salt Lake temple dressed in their temple clothes after they left the church or whatever. It makes people really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I would love to get some Mormon temple clothes and go to the ward. just pretend, because they try. I always tell them I like to go there, and they invite me, and and I'm honest with them. I grew up in a cult, so I'm very suspicious, but they always invite me. It would be fun just to put on, just pretend I thought this is what we were supposed to wear.
Oh man.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be polite. Be like you guys.
See, and most
time at the ward.
like I said, most Mormons don't even. A lot of them might not even know what those clothes are. Because a lot of my friends also left the church, but they left the church before ever having gone to the temple, and so I went and hung out with them one time, and as a joke, I brought my temple clothes. I didn't tell any of them, and I went to the bathroom and changed, and I walked out. And they were just like, "What the hell are you wearing?" And I told her, "This is what your dad wears every weekend in the temple." And he's like, No. And like, he's like, these are 25-year-old guys, and all of them were just blown away. They're like, "No, that's not what they wear." And they didn't believe me. And finally I showed them pictures online. They're like, "Holy shit."
But yeah, it's weird, but so they don't know it. They never go online and just check it by curiosity.
Well, you're not supposed to. It's that it's not secret but sacred. You don't talk about sacred things.
No, that's fun. Okay, so if you go to the celestial. What's in the celestial? Because, okay, so I heard the first time you go through the temple, you go through, okay, so they tell you, "Oh, it's wonderful, and then you're a young boy or a young woman, you go through. But then they say they do all the clashing and bashing, and then you go to the celestial, and then bang, all of a sudden you're standing in front of your family, and you have to give kind of an oath. And I would say that's coercion, because You just put them, bang, here's your family looking at you. Don't disappoint them and give a promise to,
So
it's
like
not
all
true.
the
It's not like coercion from my perspective.
Well, all the promises that you do are before the celestial room, because once you're in the celestial room, nothing happens in there. You can just kind of hang out there as long as you want. And there's a lot of pictures that they'll post online. It's a very pretty room. It's usually all white. There's like very expensive chandeliers, and there's like white Bibles and copies of the Book of Mormon everywhere that you can just kind of sit in there as long as you want and study.
It's like a lounge.
What?
Like what's the English word? Like a
lounge
lobby or lunch. You can just hang out there.
Yeah, it's exactly like a lounge.
Obviously, no alcohol, but
usually you don't want to hang out too long because you just sat through like 3 hours of the most tedious nonsense you've ever done in your life, and so I want to go home.
And you do this every Saturday.
You don't have to. There's not like a set time for you to do it. The only days you can't are on Sunday and Monday. The temple is closed, but you can do it at any time of any day other than that.
So there's really nothing happening in the celestial. It's
just people hanging out, and you can talk about you can talk to other people there, but everyone always kind of whispers. So like the promising and stuff like that, there's a lot of, it feels very coercive, yeah, because you're going to let your family down if you leave this thing, but that all happens before you get to the celestial room.
Okay. So when you're hanging out there, you can't really talk about football. It must be talk about God and Holy Father and blah, blah, blah.
I mean, there's not...
if you just would start talking about football, great game.
People are going to look at you weird if you start doing that.
So it's just Jehovah, 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 and then you leave, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. You say a bunch of... You learn the handshakes, and you learn the code words that go with the handshakes, and then you just go home.
Oh no, I'm glad I'm not a Mormon, but it sounds boring.
It's boring, but I don't know. I think you guys still got the raw end of the stick.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. So I always loved going knocking door. I'm a very outward person, and I thought I was helping people, teaching them about Jehovah. I always thought I would die in Armageddon because I wasn't good enough, but like most believe. But then I thought I could save someone else. So I spent, 10 years on my mission.
Jesus.
Work 1 day a week as a window cleaner, out preaching on the most hardcore. I lived in a Toyota Starlet. Damn. So I was sleeping. I had a sleeping bag and I had a flute. So I had some wholesome activity. When I wasn't preaching, I was playing my little recorder. And then I had 3 bags, one with canned food, one with clothing, and one with literature. But I had no gasoline, so I was walking around the territory. And then I would go back to my Toyota.
Yeah.
I thought we were saving people. Now I have to walk around to the same people apologizing for trying to recruit them to a cult, and they just laugh at me and say, "We knew it all the time."
No, you guys are definitely, Jehovah's Witnesses are a lot crazier, I think. Not the people themselves, but the organization itself, I'd say is...
Yeah, it's worse.
I would say it's like, I don't know, as far as high demand religions go, I think you get to a threshold to where it gets murky whether they do more good than harm or not. But I think Jehovah's Witnesses are definitely on the other side of that. I think it does more harm than good. Mormonism, I think there's a certain amount of good it can do. I don't like it. I don't want to be in it or anything, but I think if I were Jehovah's Witness, I would actively be trying to get people out of the church a lot more than I am now as an ex-Mormon.
Yeah. Yeah, you can have a normal life as a Mormon.
Not quite. I guess I don't have much to compare it to.
Well, you can have an education, you can have a hobby.
Yeah, you can definitely have a fairly normal life. It's not, because I remember like I said, the girl that I tried to date, in high school who was Jehovah's Witness. She wasn't allowed to hang out with us outside school. She wasn't, anything. Like, she would try to give me things to read, and I'd be like, well, why don't you read this? If we're trying to convert each other, you read my thing, I'll read your thing. And she'd think, nope, my parents won't let me, and I don't think I'd do it anyway. And I'm like, but you're trying to convert me, throw me a bone here. So it's definitely every instance of Jehovah's Witnesses I've seen, they've been a lot more strict than the Mormons. And Mormons are pretty strict.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's weird. I wonder how all this crazy stuff happened to us. Anyway, so and then you go from the celestial, you mingle. So that's just the mingle room, basically. It's like heaven.
Yeah.
We're going to walk around with our physical bodies forever. And so there's no symbolism, like you get your own share. This is my planet, and you have some small shells orbiting.
The only real reference to that is they say that you are ordained to become a king and a god and a priest or whatever like that. And they don't talk a whole lot about the whole becoming gods doctrine. Especially now, I think they're trying to distance themselves from that. They're really working on merging with mainstream Christianity.
Yeah, no, it's fun to ask Mormons question about, you get your own planet, because they have a really long explanation.
Yeah.
No, that's not what we believe. Well, what's a planet? Well, and how do you define being a god? And in the end, like 15 minutes, and then, yes, we will have our own planet, but I will not be God. I will be exactly like God, and people will worship me. But
I kind of wish they just lean into it. Honestly, I think that
it's so weird. They don't shun family members.
Yeah,
Can they be honest and say, yes, we do shun family members?
Well,
if anything, they say I'm shunning them.
Yeah,
But also this, I always ask them. I can get the same answer another way. I ask, this with eternal families, what do you call it? You're together with family for eternity?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're sealed to Morgan, and she's, you're sealed to everyone in all directions.
Kind of, yeah. You're sealed to your parents.
And sooner or later, everyone is related to Brigham Young because they had like 100 wives,
He did.
So how can you all be all together? And then the missionaries look at each other and say, maybe we will have to find a planet close to his planet.
Yeah.
So if you confuse them a little, then they will always give you the correct answer.
Yeah, see, I didn't have as much of that. I didn't have very many difficult questions on my mission because, the Brazilians just think that you're a normal Christian usually, and they don't really know much of the deep stuff about Mormonism because Mormonism isn't nearly as prevalent there as in the U.S. They're just like, oh yeah, Jesus, woo.
Yeah. Okay, so another question now. So in Norway, we don't have a temple. I think they have one in Stockholm, but how often are the Mormons here in Norway expected to go down to a temple then? Is it like, minimum once a life, or when you get married, obviously you want to get sealed in the temple?
So yeah, you're supposed to go if you can for yourself. So like one time. After that, they encourage you to keep going, and they're not mean about it if you don't have a temple close by. So it's not like they expect you to fly to another country all the time to go to a temple. But they talk it up to the point where they don't really have to. They talk about it's the most sacred place on earth. It's the closest to God you can be without actually going to heaven. And so, most Mormons want to go, at least for their own ordinances. And that was a big thing growing up because there's a ton of temples now. There's, I feel like 140 or something crazy like that around the world. But, 100 years ago, that wasn't the case. And you'd hear these stories of people saving up for years just to be able to get a passport to come to the temple, and it was such a worthwhile sacrifice or whatever. And you hear things like that, and that kind of convinces you that it's more important than anything.
Yeah, okay, yeah, those stories. We used to hear those stories too, you know. People would sell their only cow to go to the convention.
Yeah.
Trust in Jehovah. We didn't have food to feed the family, but they sold the cow to go to the convention. And then they would always, Jehovah Witnesses, when someone sells the cow to go to the convention, they always have to swim over a crocodile-infested water to the convention.
Oh, good Lord.
That's a part of the folklore.
Yeah. Those stories all sound very familiar.
No. Do you have stories about people paying tithing even though they couldn't afford it? Is like that's a good thing, or is it like something we don't talk about?
Every Sunday you'll hear some story like that. Tithing is like the most important thing for Mormons. One of the worst ones I can think of is, so we have the general conference twice a year. It's when it's broadcast throughout the world. Everyone listens to all of the apostles speak and a lot of the other higher up members of the church speak. And I remember this one, I can't remember where the guy was from. I think it was somewhere in South America. I don't remember his name, but it was only a couple years ago. It was fairly recent. He was telling a story of when he was a kid, and he wakes up one night to go get a glass of water, and he hears his parents arguing about tithing, and he finds out they either have enough money to pay for food or pay tithing. And then the next day at church, he sees his dad handing a tithing check to the bishop, and he goes, and the only thing I could think is, well, what are we going to eat now? And like the whole congregation laughs because he sells that like it's a joke. I'm like, that's not a joke, man. That's a little kid worried about where he's going to get his next meal because his parents are throwing money at a corporation that's worth millions, billions now. Yeah. And that rubbed me the wrong way when I heard, because I heard that it was close to the time when I had either just left Mormonism or I was in the process of leaving it. They'll say things like, we can't afford not to pay tithing.
Yeah, I heard that one. I can.
I can. It's actually a lot more affordable, honestly.
Yeah, and then you get a blessing for paying tithing, but it's not the exact same amount, and we really don't know what it is.
It's pretty vague. Anytime something like,
I can promise the same, and I only take 9%. So go.
Yeah, you're a better deal. It's anytime something happens,
and you get 2 planets. 2 planets for 9%.
Damn, I'm gonna have to join your cult.
Yeah. It's called the shiny.
Anytime something happens that seems miraculous or whatever, they attribute it to having faithfully paid tithing. It's kind of like the amount of stories I've heard to where we faithfully paid tithing even though we didn't have the money, and then lo and behold, I get a check in the mail for the exact amount that I needed for my mortgage payment to the cent or whatever. I'm like, I don't believe you. I think you're lying right now.
Well, that's probably someone, because my mother used to tell me the same story. She was pioneering, and we pay our own bills when we're pioneering. And she told me when I was a kid, like, we always hear these stories, when you're pioneering, Jehovah would pay your bills, So as soon as you left everything out there and you were knocking at door, and in the end, when your blood sugar was so low, so you're almost dying, then someone gave you a piece of bread and blah, blah, blah. Stories like that. And my mother always told the story that they were out pioneering and they couldn't pay. But every time, the last day, when they couldn't pay it, someone would give them money, and it was the exact amount they had to pay. So, I heard stories like that. But then as a grown-up, I mentioned this miracle to my mother that she told me all the time when I was a kid. And then when we were both grown-up, she said, it was a sister in the congregation. She knew how much we paid and what date we should pay it.
Oh.
So when I was grown-up, she would just, It wasn't a miracle, but when I was a kid and you believe everything,
Yeah.
she sold it like a miracle.
Yeah, definitely a lot more miraculous.
On the exact date before we should pay.
God is good.
Yeah, no, they tricked us.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. Yeah, I like your reaction because you told about your reaction because it was the same reaction as I had. Like, okay, so the religion is wrong, the truth is not the truth, or the church is not true, and little by little, I started, you start feeling good about yourself. You start hating yourself a little less than you used to, and then at one point you realized, and I realized that I could have felt this good about myself my whole life.
Yeah.
Instead of hating myself for 20 years. Tell the viewers how you reacted. I heard it.
Oh man, I have never been that angry in my life. I was in a blind rage. I was just at my friend's house one day, and I had this weird cheesy moment where I was in the bathroom and I looked up and I saw my reflection. I was like, I kind of like me. And then it hit me like this wave of awesome. I was like, yeah, and that's fine. I don't have to hate myself. And then all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, I never had to. And I have for like the last 22 or 3 years or however long it had been. And then when I went to drive home, that's all I could think about. I sat there in my friend's driveway just losing my shit. I was like pounding on my steering wheel, just screaming like an insane person about how I never had, like, there's no reason for me to feel that way. And now I'm fine. So
yeah, we basically brainwash ourselves an hour every night just trying to impress Jehovah how much I hated myself, because he could only forgive me if you hated yourself to the brink of not existing,
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I used to
really try to feel as bad as possible, like to industrial level hate yourself.
Yeah, it signifies your virtue. The crappier you treat yourself, the more virtuous of a person you are.
Yeah. So trust me when I say I think life is so much better without religion.
Yeah,
I told this one Mormons missionary, and they made these big eyes. I told them, when you're religious, I thought the worst thing that could happen to someone is to lose your faith. But now I know it's the best thing that ever happened.
Yeah, I don't miss it.
No, reality is better. Let's see if there's some people have some question for Mormons here. So your family is not shunning you or anything?
No. That's a lot bigger for you guys. There's never any leaders that'll tell you should shun your family member, and they're getting a lot better at being able to deal with family members leaving. So no, my family's great. They're even easier than most Mormon families are.
Yeah, but do they believe you go to hell? Well, now you go to hell, of course, but do you believe you go to hell or terrestrial? Because terrestrial is good, basically.
Yeah, it's the bottom kingdom is probably where they would say that I would go if you like really pressed them. They wouldn't want to say anything bad about me or anything. They probably, I don't know, if
you go to telestial.
Yeah, telestial is the lowest one, and that's probably where they would say that I would go. So that's not a bad deal. It's still better than anything else. Joseph Smith said, if you saw how great it was, you'd kill yourself right now just to get there.
Okay.
Yeah, so if anyone's got the truth, I hope it's the Mormons, because I'm golden.
Yeah. No, I believe all religions are wrong. So I just post my link here if someone wants to ask the Mormons something. The ExMorgan, So It's probably a joke you heard before, but isn't there some tribe called Jared in the Mormon book?
Yeah, the Jaredites. They came over to the Americas before the Nephites. They left because when the Tower of Babel fell, and they came over here and
Sorry, I had to.
oh, you're good. And basically wooden submarines.
Yeah, the boats that could flip.
Yeah, the ones that they sealed them up, and
They were like boats on all sides, and so if it flipped, was no problem.
Yep, and they talked about how they'd be in storms, they'd go under, they'd be submerged for like minutes at a time or whatever. It's a pretty.
And they had beehives on these, I heard.
Yeah, they talk about a lot of things they brought over, like livestock and just crazy amounts of things like that. So they're pretty. That's the Jaredites.
Hmm. So I heard. What to call it? The stuff in the Book of Mormon that's not real. That was before.
Anachronism.
Huh?
Anachronism.
Anachronism. Like if it says in a book that Joseph Smith looked at his iPhone, that's an anachronism.
Yeah.
So when it talks about steel wheels and stuff, he just wrote. He made up the book basically.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, try to explain it. They say, well, he didn't know the word, so he picked something else. But that's actually a very crappy explanation on several levels, because one of the words he came up with was goat.
Yeah.
And they say, well, maybe he saw a deer and he didn't know the word for deer, so he wrote goat. Why wouldn't a person living in America not know the word deer? Then you would take the closest word would be moose or elk.
Yeah. See, that explanation can take you some places, but there are certain things that doesn't cut it, like when they talk about chariots and things like that.
Yeah.
I can't, what could you explain? Like, what could you possibly say that Joseph Smith would have confused a chariot for?
Yeah, they say it was a sledge. He saw a sledge, so he wrote chariot. But how he didn't know the word for sledge?
Huh. I don't know. There's a lot of them that are just odd.
Yeah. Oh, born again atheist. Thank you. Thing in my house here. But another funny thing with you already said the tapir, so it was something else. It's weird. Have you seen tapir? How small they are? They are almost blind. They can almost not hear.
I didn't know they couldn't hear.
It's a miracle they are alive. They're slow moving. They have poor eyesight. They have poor hearing. I don't know about smell. And to be graphic, they also have one of the animal kingdom's weirdest male ding dong, because it can actually move like a limb in all directions.
So they're like pandas with hooves.
Yeah, no, it's a weird animal. So could imagine the Lamanites going to war sitting on a.
Apparently, they're also nocturnal, so I guess all the battles happened at night.
Yeah, no, it's a funny story. Book of Mormon. So no one wants to call in and ask you questions. So maybe we should just turn off then, because we've been doing this for 1.5 hours. So
just about, yeah.
Well, let's hope the corona goes away, because last year I was going to was almost going to Salt Lake City to protest with Sam Young.
Really?
Yeah. So I was a part of making a small ExJW appendix protest to the big Mormon protest.
Huh. That's cool.
To get more media attention, because when just one group split up into one small and one big group give them more to write about.
Yeah.
And we are the door knocking lovable weirdos. So so that's fun. So maybe I'll go there next year instead if we have a children's march.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah. So no one's calling in here more than, so we can just, say thank you for all our viewers. Hope you learned something about why you should not be a Mormon, and especially why you should not be a Jehovah Witness. So I will just end the broadcast there. So, any last word, Jared, before you go to hell?
No, I'll just go to hell. But
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. Say hello to Morgan.
Will do.
And Lucas. Okay.
Yeah.
See you in
Good
paradise.
talking to you, man.